He lit himself on fire, on purpose. Before every battle, Edward Teach, the man the world would call Blackbeard, tied slow-burning cannon fuses into his beard. He walked into combat wreathed in smoke, eyes wide, grinning through the haze like something that had already died and decided it didn't take. It was theatre, magnificent, terrifying theatre. But here's what the history books bury. The night before his final battle, November 21st, 1718, Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina, Blackbeard did something no witness fully explained. He ordered his most trusted men below deck. He sent everyone else away, and when those men came back up, they were pale. One of them was weeping. They had moved something heavy, something that required 3 men and absolute silence. And whatever it was not on any inventory when the Navy boarded his ship the next morning. Where did it go?
In the weeks after Blackbeard's death, the British Navy catalogued everything found aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge and his sloop Adventure. The list was meticulous: rum, gunpowder, charts, coin, every plank accounted for, except one item. A single line in a deposition given by a captured crewman, a Jamaican sailor named Cole, who later vanished from prison records entirely, reads, "The captain's chest was not among those seized. The captain's chest was never among those seized." Cole didn't say what was in it. He didn't describe its size, its lock, its markings. He stated its absence like a man reporting a fact he fully expected someone else to fix. No investigator followed up. No court record mentions it again. It disappears from the historical record the same way Blackbeard himself seemed to disappear in the seconds between being shot 5 times and still managing to fight on. Some men leave a wound in the record when they go. Blackbeard left a hole, and holes have shapes.
The Queen Anne's Revenge ran aground at Beaufort Inlet in June 1718, 5 months before Blackbeard's death. Most historians call it an accident. Most historians weren't there. A handful of Blackbeard's own crew, interviewed years later, said the grounding was deliberate. The Teach beached the ship on purpose to strand 400 men. Crew he no longer trusted and sail away with a smaller, faster vessel and a tighter circle of loyalty. Which raises the question, what had he learned that made 400 men suddenly too many witnesses? The ship's log from those final months, if it ever existed, has never been found. But in 2011, marine archaeologists excavating the wreck site off North Carolina recovered something extraordinary. A sealed lead container, barely larger than a book, that appeared to have been placed, not dropped, not lost, placed deliberately in a cavity beneath the ship's main beam. Inside, water-damaged paper, partially legible. The words that could be read included a compass bearing, a date, and a single phrase: "Do not name the place." Her name was Isabel Morrow, and she didn't exist according to any official record of Blackbeard's crew, which meant he was paying her from a private account. Morrow was a navigator, Portuguese-born, raised in the Azores, trained on merchant routes that ran as far as the Slave Coast. She had no name in any muster roll, no share listed in any prize distribution. She was invisible on paper, which for a man like Blackbeard meant she was invaluable. Surviving accounts describe a woman seen regularly on the quarterdeck in the final months of 1718, consulting charts that were kept locked separately from the ship's main navigation stores. When asked by another crewman what she was charting, she reportedly said, "A place that isn't on any chart yet, because the right person hasn't put it there." Morrow was not captured at Ocracoke. She was not killed. She was simply, as with Cole before her, not there when the Navy arrived. 2 people who knew about the chest, 2 people who vanished. Who else knew? His name was Israel Hands, first mate, Blackbeard's most trusted officer and the man who shot him. Not during the battle, before it. In a famous incident on the Adventure in 1717, Blackbeard, for no apparent reason, under the table during a card game, shot Hans in the knee, left him crippled for life. When asked why, Teach reportedly said, "If I don't shoot one of you now and then, you'll forget who I am." But there's a counter-reading that historians have whispered about for decades. Hans had been asking questions about the chest. Hans had been seen, twice, near the locked chart room. And the shot, so casual, so inexplicable, may have been the most elegant warning Blackbeard ever issued. Hans later gave testimony against the surviving crew. He accepted a pardon. He told the court everything, except, conveniently, anything about the chest, the Navigator, or the compass bearing found in that lead container. He knew. He chose silence. He chose life. And those two choices, it turns out, are not always the same thing. Ocracoke Inlet, 1718. 20 miles of shallow water, sandbars that shift with every tide, channels so narrow that a full warship can't navigate them without a local pilot. Blackbeard knew every inch of it. He had been using it as a base for months, drinking, dealing, and daring the world to come find him. The Outer Banks were his living room, the inlet was his moat. When Lieutenant Robert Maynard came for him on November 22nd, he didn't come with a ship of the line. He came with 2 shallow draft sloops, stripped of cannons to reduce weight, carrying 80 men in total. They navigated the sandbar in darkness. Twice they ran aground. They refloated by dumping their water barrels. They were coming in blind, exhausted, and armed with nothing but muskets and desperation. And Blackbeard, watching from the adventurer's deck in the pre-dawn dark, reportedly turned to his first officer and said, "Well, at least they're creative." Then he opened fire. Lieutenant Robert Maynard was not a swashbuckler. He was a bureaucrat with a sword. He kept meticulous records. He wrote careful dispatches. He was the kind of man who, in the middle of a firefight, made notes. And his notes from the morning of November 22nd are extraordinary, not for what they describe, but for what they deliberately skip. Maynard writes about the battle in precise detail, the positions of the ships, the names of his dead, the sequence of the boarding. He describes Blackbeard's body, 5 bullet wounds, 20 sword lacerations, still standing until the last, with the clinical awe of a man who cannot quite believe what he saw. And then the log simply moves on. No mention of a chest, no mention of cargo searched or unsearched, no mention of any hold inspection beyond a brief note. The ship's stores were found to be consistent with a vessel of her size and purpose. That phrase, consistent with, is the work of a man describing something he has been told not to describe. Someone had already been aboard, before Maynard. So, what was in it? 3 competing theories have circulated among maritime historians for 3 centuries. The first, gold. Accumulated plunder from 2 years of the most aggressive privateering in Atlantic history, kept separate from crew shares, reserved for Blackbeard's retirement to a life he reportedly dreamed of in Bath, North Carolina. A home, a wife, a fire. The second theory is darker. Documents, evidence. Blackbeard had spent years as, effectively, a licensed privateer, tolerated, possibly employed by colonial governors who profited from his raids and feared his testimony. The chest, in this reading, contained proof, names, transactions, letters that would destroy careers, end political lives, or worse. The third theory is the one that serious historians mention only in footnotes. Morrow's charts, the bearing from the lead container, a location that, according to at least 2 separate unconnected accounts from former crew members, pointed not to an island, not to a coastline, but to something beneath the water. Something Blackbeard had found and hidden again and refused to name. 6 weeks before his death, Blackbeard's crew almost killed him themselves. Not out of cowardice, out of fear of something else entirely. A man named Garrett, crew record places him as a gunner's mate, Scottish-born, 41 years old, led what surviving accounts call a dispute of conscience. Garrett had apparently witnessed the night the chest was moved, and he had told 3 other men what he saw inside it. All 3 men requested to be put ashore at the next landfall. All 3 men were denied. Garrett confronted Blackbeard directly, on deck, in front of the crew. Exact words aren't recorded, but what is recorded, Blackbeard listened, nodded slowly, and then very quietly said something that made Garrett sit down and not speak again for the remaining 6 weeks of his life. What could a man like Blackbeard say that turned a furious mutineer into a silent man? What was in that chest that, once seen, made a hardened sailor beg to be left behind on any shore at all? Garrett died at Ocracoke, sword wound, first wave of the battle. He never named what he saw. Here is the thing about Edward Teach that no legend survives long enough to tell you. He was, by multiple contemporary accounts, a remarkably well-read man. He carried books, kept them dry when nothing else was kept dry. Marlowe, Defoe, navigation manuals in 4 languages. He spoke, according to one colonial merchant who met him in Bath, with uncommon warmth about the sea itself, not as a highway, but as a place, as if it were alive and he had made a kind of arrangement with it. This is not the behavior of a man who wanted gold. Gold is for men who distrust the future. Blackbeard, for all his theatre, all his fire and noise and performance, was trying to find something. And the chest, every piece of evidence suggests, was the record of his search. His wound, his real wound, beneath the bravado, was this. He had found something the world wasn't ready for, and he didn't know what to do with it, so he hid it. And then he kept doing the only thing he knew, being terrifying. Until the morning arrived, when terrifying wasn't enough. 5 bullets, 20 sword wounds, still standing. The Battle of Ocracoke Inlet is one of the most documented and most disputed fights in pirate history. What's agreed, it was brutal, fast, and shockingly one-sided once Maynard's men got aboard. What's disputed, how long Blackbeard actually lasted. Some accounts say he fought for 10 minutes after the first shot. One account, a single soldier's letter home to his mother in Portsmouth, says he watched Blackbeard take a sword through the shoulder, pull it out, and use it to strike the man who'd stabbed him. And then, finally, he fell. Maynard ordered his head cut off and hung from the bowsprit. The body was thrown into the inlet. The head swung in the winter air as the sloop sailed back towards civilization, and every man aboard, even the soldiers who'd fought him, reportedly could not look at it directly. Not out of disgust, out of the feeling that the eyes were still open, still watching, still looking for something. Something that wasn't on the ship anymore. 3 months after Blackbeard's death, a letter arrived at a colonial postal office in Charlestown, South Carolina, addressed to no one, containing no signature. Inside, a single sheet of paper. On it, drawn in a careful, educated hand using navigational notation, a map, not to an island, a diagram, a set of measurements, a depth, a notation in the corner that read, in Portuguese, Já foi encontrado, already found. The letter was intercepted by a Crown official and subsequently disappeared from record. Two historians who separately discovered references to it, one in 1887, one in 1971, both reported the same thing. The original was unavailable, its location unknown, and the archivist they spoke to it about it became visibly uncomfortable and changed the subject. The map described something at a depth of 60 feet in tidal waters along a coastline consistent with, but not identical to, Ocracoke Inlet. Was it Moreau's work, the final dispatch of a woman who'd already vanished? Or something Blackbeard himself had arranged to be sent, knowing exactly what dawn was coming? He had been planning the morning he died. The men who knew about the chest did not fare well. Calec vanished from a British prison in 1719. No escape recorded, no body found. He simply ceased to exist in the paperwork, the way certain problems do when someone with authority decides the paperwork is the problem. Garrett, dead at Ocracoke, as noted, but his belongings, searched by Maynard's crew, included a folded paper sewn into the lining of his coat. The paper's contents were described in a list of seized items as personal letters of no naval significance. The list does not describe what the letters said. Hans lived until approximately 2030, begging in London according to a single pamphlet, but a separate church record from Bristol, dated 2726, records a burial of a Robert Hans, mariner, formerly of the American colonies. Different first name, same surname, same age. 2 men, 1 grave. Someone had reason to give him a new name at the end. And Morrow, the Navigator, leaves one final trace. A shipping manifest from Lisbon, 2722, lists a passenger, Morrow, Navigator, bound for Madeira, purpose of travel, personal cartographic work. She was still mapping something. In 1996, the wreck of the Queen Anne's Revenge was positively identified in Beaufort Inlet. The excavation has been ongoing for nearly 30 years. Archaeologists have recovered over 400,000 artifacts, cannons, navigational instruments, medical equipment, personal objects. In 2020, they recovered a fragment of a lead plaque, the kind used to mark official cargo. Its markings place its origin in Lisbon. Its date is 1716, 2 years before the ship ran aground. It had been added after the ship was already in service, added to mark something that, according to the artifact log, has not yet been matched to any recovered item. The seafloor around Ocracoke Inlet has been surveyed twice by maritime archaeology teams. Both surveys note an anomaly, a section of seafloor at approximately 58 feet, close enough to 60 to make the letter credible, that has a density reading inconsistent with natural sediment. Something is there, something regular, something that was placed. It has not been excavated. Budget reasons, says the report, 3 times. Here is what we know. Blackbeard moved something the night before he died. A crewman reported its absence. A navigator vanished after charting it. A first mate was maimed for asking about it. A mutineer died rather than name it. A letter arrived addressed to no one with a diagram in Portuguese. An anomaly sits on a seafloor near Ocracoke, unexcavated, waiting. Here is what we don't know, what it is. Gold would be extraordinary, documents would be world-altering, but the third possibility, the submerged discovery, would be something else entirely. Something that would rewrite not just what we know about one pirate, but about what was known by certain people about the Atlantic world in 1718. Blackbeard was many things, a performer, a murderer, a genius of fear, a man who read Marlowe in the dark. But the chest suggests he was also a keeper of something. Something he didn't create, something that was given to him or that he stumbled into and decided in his particular flamboyant smoke and fire way to protect. The sea doesn't give up what it keeps, but it keeps it perfectly. And somewhere off the coast of North Carolina, 60 feet down, in the cold and the dark and the silence, the chest is still waiting.